Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden. Welcome to me learning Next.js 13 beta. So this is the 5th stream in this series where I've just been learning all of the stuff about the app directory and everything like that. Thank you, Fob, for that resub. And Solly with the tier 1 sub as well. Thank you. So this is the app that we're working on. Essentially, it gives you a map with all these places that you've been. So you can add points to the map of places you've been with a description, an image, and a date. And that's about it. Yeah, it's not that complicated, but we're doing our best to use modern practices and write some nice code that people can eventually use as an example. So we're using Leaflet, but I'm actually using the Mapbox tile layer from Mapbox Studio. If you take, I need to update the today command, but if you take a look at the README, that has a rundown of all the tech that we're using. Next on the back end, MongoDB for our database. We're using React with TypeScript, Zod for our validators. We're using React Leaflet, which is a React library on top of Leaflet. We're using React Hook Form for our forms, Tailwind and Daisy UI for our UI components, and then various developer tooling. And then, like I said, we're using Mapbox Studio. So I went into Mapbox Studio, made a custom tile layer, and now I plugged that tile layer into Leaflet. So if you want to add a new travel log, let's just add a random one here. You click on the map, that gives you a little yellow thing. What we did last time is we locked this down via API key. So this app is not going to have like a full user auth system. Essentially, if you know the API key, you can add things to the map. So you click on the map, you can then drag it around or choose what you're going to add to the map. Give it a title, give it a description, and then give it an image URL, give it a rating. Everything on our map is 10 out of 10 so far. And then you can choose what date you visited that place. When you click create, that sends a post request, puts it in the database, and then now it shows up on the map as a place that you visited. So that's the basic app. And as you can see, it's working for the most part. There are some things that we still need to do. So one of the first things we're going to do is update our Zod validators and also work on serialization. So one of the things you might be seeing if you're running this code locally is we get this warning in the console from Next.js because we're passing the data that we get back from the database immediately as a prop. And Next.js doesn't like that we're passing a date object because it doesn't know how to serialize a date object. So we need to fix that. And so it's happening right here. So this is a server component that queries the database. And then we take what we got back from the database and pass it down to a client component. But this piece right here, Next.js doesn't know what to do with the date objects. Now, as you can see, it seems to work just fine because under the hood, it's very likely stringifying it. And then the date is being passed as a string to the front end. And then we're parsing that string on the front end. But we need to fix that. There's a few different ways we could go about it. I think we're actually going to switch to timestamps instead of dates. So then we don't even have to worry about serialization. But this is a pretty common concept in places that are not JavaScript or TypeScript, where essentially you get back some data and you need to tell your runtime how to take that data and turn it into something that can be sent over the web, over HTTP.
Thanks, CJ Future Man.
Hey, you're not going to tell my name. Thank you for the donation. So that's what we're going to work on first. We're going to get rid of this warning and potentially modify our data model so that we're putting timestamps in the database instead of date objects. But we had a few other supports. Thank you, BJ Sebastian, for the 14-month resub. Sunny with the Prime says 1 year. Thank you. Melinda with the 19 months. David with the 400 bits. And David with another 500 bits. David with the 2 gifted. Thank you for that, David. Fob, who says, love your streams. Thank you for the Prime. And Sully, thank you for the 8 months. And thank you for all the follows. I appreciate that, everyone. So this is our app, and that is the first thing that we're going to do. But before that, let's welcome everybody in, because this is the Coding Garden. We like to welcome everyone in, and you will be happy to know, Eddie. Thank you. That's right. It took me by surprise. Thank you for the 5 gifted, Eddie. I appreciate that. You'll be happy to know we have commands over on YouTube now. So on YouTube, you can actually play the drop game. So if you do drop me, you can do this on Twitch too, but we recently added it to YouTube. But if you do drop me, it'll drop your avatar from the sky from like that, and if it lands in the garden, you'll get your YouTube handle on the screen for a little bit. It looks like Murdoch might make it. Just missed it. He was robbed. But if you look in the YouTube chat, I have a message pinned on how you can set your YouTube handle, because you'll notice that in my overlay, yeah, I did bark, but it's up to me. It's my stream. What are you? Stop interrupting me. What are you doing? I can go back on things I've said in the past, but you'll notice if you send a YouTube message, it shows up as a handle. And so if you click this link, that tells you how to set your YouTube handle if you haven't set your YouTube handle yet. And what else? Yeah, so you can see YouTube chat has had this for the longest time. And I guess if you're new on the Twitch side, sorry, Twitch chat has had this a long time. If you're new on the Twitch side, I'll show you how all of this works as well. So you can see, for example, Eddie has their country flag set to Brazil. Fob has set theirs to the Netherlands. Mashiko has theirs set to Israel. Mark has theirs set to something, I don't know, because there's actually a lot of flags that you can do. Yeah, I agree with that, Murdoch, but I didn't have a chance to work on that this morning. But I'm going to try to do that probably on Thursday for like a supporters only stream. Is it Lebanon? Nice. But what you can do in the chat is if you do ! flag followed by your 2-character country code. So for me, it's the US. I could do that, and then my flag will show up next to my name. But if you take a look at the flags repo, so github.com/codinggarden/flags, we forked this repo and we've been adding new flags to it to include states, provinces, and cities. So if you go here and you find a folder for your country that is a 2-character country code, that means we also have at least the states. And then if you see a folder for your state or your province, then that means we have cities also for your, we have flags for cities in that given state or province. So for instance, I live in the US, I live in Colorado, and I live in a city called Denver. And because that file exists in that repo, when I do that, it sets my flag to the Denver, Colorado flag like this, which is that one. Yes, I will link this repo. Really, you want to be looking in the SVG folder. Cool. Yeah, and you can do the same thing over on YouTube. So on YouTube, if you do ! flag followed by your 2-character country code, or if you go to that repo and find your flag, then all of your YouTube messages will have that country flag in there. You can also set your team. So your team can be anything from the Font Awesome brand cheat sheet. Is this on? That's too many. That's too many. So you can choose from the Font Awesome brand cheat sheet over here. Any brand you see, like YouTube or Twitter or WordPress or whatever else, and then the chat, if you do ! team followed by any one of those brands, it's going to show up next to your chat messages. The other place that you can look is simple icons. So there's this list of slugs of various brands. If you go to simpleicons.org, you can get a preview of all the various brands and such. And so pick one and set it as your team. So let me pick one. Let's see. I'm going to choose Angular because it's funny. So, I mean, it's not funny, but I'm going to choose Angular. So in the chat, I can do team followed by any one of the slugs here that corresponds. So, I mean, if I search Angular here, yeah, the slug is AngularJS. So I would want to type AngularJS, all lowercase. And now on YouTube, I should have the Angular logo on my messages. I do. You can see it's there. And it's green because the other thing you can do is you can set your team color. You just need to set it to a hex code. This is the coding garden green, but in the chat, if you do ! Yeah, exactly. I'm weeding people out by just mentioning Angular. If I do !color, or sorry, team color, followed by a 6-digit hex code with the hash it needs to look like this. Yeah, I'll have to fix my blue screen in just a second. You do this, that'll change the color of the team specifically. You can do this on YouTube as well. Yeah, so if you set it to white, then it should show up as white. Let's see. Nice. Yeah, so now you have the white YouTube logo. Very good. And you can also set your pronouns. So you can see procrastinating watching CJ has their pronouns set to he, him, his. Mine are he, him, his. Mark Boots are he, him, his. Mark 2067 are he, him, his. So if you want to set your pronouns, you can't connect your Twitch right now. I'm working on a dashboard where basically you'll log into all of your stuff and then all of your teams and badges will sync. Right now you have to set it separately. What do we want to do? We want to know what pronouns are. What are the possibilities? So you can choose from this list of pronouns. We've got she, he, they, they, ko, none, they, hi, it, one, em, or yo. So pick one of those. And then in the chat, if you do exclamation mark pronoun, singular, followed by something from that list. So in this case, my pronouns are he. If I do that, then my pronouns will show up next to my messages like that, he, him, his. So you can try that over on YouTube too. Yeah. And so the teams are from the Font Awesome brand cheat sheet or from Simple Icons. So if you find a team on any one of those, you can set it in the chat. You can look here as well. Nice, Mark Boots. Nice, 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 nice. So that's all that. Let's say hi. If you want me to say hi to you, wait. Okay, it works. I was like, do hello messages work from YouTube? I think they do. So in the chat, if you say hi, hello, hello, hey, yo, cheers, greetings, hi, up, what's up, morning, afternoon, evening, howdy, good day, coding, hi-yo, bo-hi-yo, or boga-hey. Say any one of those things, I will see that message and I will acknowledge you. I will say your name out loud. Can someone on YouTube try to say hello? Because I think it works for YouTube. Like that. Did that work? I don't think it's working. I don't want to fix this right now. So, hello everyone on YouTube. That's all I give. Next time. What's up, Mark? Welcome in, Mark Boots. What's up, SQL Gordster and Podflip and CFM and Inber and Blue Spider? What's up, RXS and Farshid and Macaroni Pizza Pie? What's up, Erkudin and One Computer Guy and Zelino and Zweed CSGO? How's it going? What's up, Nishark and Shirkum and Moshiko? Hello, Origin and Old School Rapper and Ergon Rod. What's up, Procrastinating? Watching CJ and hello, Slake and Twisted Seed and Diener and Arpats and BJ Sebastian. Hello, DMD and Distant Sense and Kush Alien 420. What's up, Unloved Slug and Fob and Caligula and DX Droney and hello, Dev Henrique. Welcome in, everybody. And David and Mr. Gollum. Glad to see you all. I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, you'll hear me say that a lot here on the Coding Garden. I don't feel like working on this right now. What's up, Dursevo? Welcome in. And Rugmat, glad to see you. And Jethron, and Isfanamed, hola. What's up, Twisted Seed and Auto Magic? Glad to see you all. All right. I need to update the today command, so give me 1 second. I need to add all the links and stuff. What's up, Jacob? Welcome in. And Jay Sismere, hello. Oh, Okay, we're back, and the today command over on Twitch should work now. So if anybody comes in and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Exclamation mark today. That'll tell them exactly what I'm doing. If you want to look at the code that I'm writing, it's over on GitHub. If you want to see the deployed app, you can click there, and you can look at all the past episodes on that YouTube playlist. I will mention that my goal is to take this code base and turn it into a proper tutorial. So I've been working on it over. This is the 5th stream. But after it's done, I'm going to take a step back and turn it into a proper tutorial where I tell you how to build it from start to finish without all the interruptions of chat and everything else. It'll just be like a dedicated tutorial for building this thing. So if you want to wait for that, just know that it's coming. It's going to happen. Let's take a quick stretch. Right before I went live, I got this weird feeling in my ear. Like, it feels like, you know how when you go swimming and you get water in your ear? It feels kind of like that and it won't go away. So I might be a little off today. But Kush Alien says, I got an app I need to make for myself. How would you create an app for tracking IOUs and making it not need auth for any stuff like that? You need to be able to submit data from the phone. You don't want auth. People want to do an IOU via like text message. I will charge you $100 to tell you how I would build that. I'm gonna please answer. I'm gonna give. See, that's the thing. Like, I've worked as a consultant before, and companies would come to the consultancy that I was working at, and they had an idea like that, and they would literally pay us for me to tell you how I would build it. You're gonna, if you want to submit data from a phone, do you mean an app or do you mean like SMS? Doing things without auth is tricky unless you have some kind of like unique session or user IDs, but then that makes it tricky to create links that could be clicked from a phone. It's doable. Honestly, ask me tomorrow. We're doing a code Q&A tomorrow. If you go to coding.garden/schedule, this is where I give away all my consulting advice for free. So if you tune in on stream tomorrow and ask that, we'll break it down. It could actually be fun to just talk about how I would build something like that. So tomorrow, tune in tomorrow. Yeah. I could mark boots, but I don't feel like it. Again, this is the theme of today. There's a lot of things I could do, but I don't feel like it. So I don't know if you could call them ready for production, because I mean, I think even if you look at the beta docs, they do say that they're beta. They're beta. So probably not ready for production yet because they're still working some things out. Oh, welcome in, Duca. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, the coding train is awesome. Definitely check out Dr. Daniel Schiffman if you haven't, over on the coding train on YouTube. He's a big inspiration of mine and a friend of the channel. So, yeah. Have I seen weird stuff during my time doing this app? What do you mean by that? So do you just mean like weird behavior of Next.js? Let's talk about that, because there are some interesting things here. And honestly, it's not even Next.js. It's like the deployed app running on Vercel. Let's talk about that. I haven't noticed any quirks of the beta itself, just notice quirks of how Next.js 13 works with server components. Because here's the thing to think about. When you add a new travel log, and when I click create, that is actually making a post request to the API folder. So I actually do have that separated out. So if you look in the code, I actually do have an API endpoint that takes a post request to put something into the database. But when it's called from the front end, it is just a fetch request to put that into the database. Oh, nice, Origi. Glad to hear it. So if you look at the actual component that makes that request to the backend. Oh, there were GIFs? Come on, Murdoch. You give me too much. But thank you for the gifts, and congrats to everybody that got gifted. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Let's see. Yeah, so we're making a post request to our backend to create that log, and then right here we're just saying router.push, and router comes from Next navigation. So we pull in use router, and then we have access to that router. and then we push to the home page. And Next.js automatically handles the fact that the home page is actually server rendered, because if you look at the home page, it is a server component, right? So the navigation doesn't actually do a full page refresh. It detects that I'm trying to go back to a page that actually is server rendered, and it handles that nicely. But one of the things you do have to do, especially mainly because being deployed to Versal, is you have to invalidate the cache right here. Basically, you're invalidating a specific path, because by default, Versal like heavily caches things. So basically, when you go to Next, and David, thank you for the bits. Looks like more features to add to the overlay. Oh yeah, like the member gifting. I have no idea how I'm gonna do that. Maybe the YouTube chat API gives it to us, but yeah, so the entire map is client side, and it kind of has to be. I mean, you could try to server side render a map. It's going to be tricky, and I actually don't know what. I mean, really, I guess the benefits you would get is if you embed a link to this, and it's creating like the preview image, you could get like a screenshot of this, but it would be tricky to server render it. So basically, what I'm saying is this whole app has no reason to actually be in Next.js, because literally everything is a client component. However, um, this caching thing actually is pretty cool, because if you go to the deployed website right now, you are being served a server rendered page that is cached. It should load immediately. And that means that when you load this deployed page, it's not actually hitting the database, because Versal is smart enough to know that we haven't invalidated the homepage yet. So basically, the next time the request for the homepage comes in, it's like, oh, this is cached. I'll just serve it from the cache. So it's pretty cool, because it prevents a database lookup for that initial page render. But when a new travel log is created, we need to bust that cache, because when somebody new comes to the page, they need a newer version of the server rendered homepage. That means we have to do this revalidate thing. So res is the response object, the Next API response object, and it has this function on it called revalidate. So anytime a new thing is put into the database, which happens in this API method, we revalidate the homepage, which means if someone else goes to the homepage, they now get the latest version of it. So these are the interesting things about like using Next and Versal. I don't know if this necessarily is from the beta. It's possible that the Next.js 13 was doing that before, but I'm learning all of this stuff as I go. So yeah. Yeah. Versal loves edge caching. Yeah, and it's a good thing, right? Because that's going to save you a whole lot of database lookups if nothing has actually changed on the page that's being rendered. So Asset Spark says, yeah, I got a Q-tip before stream, but it's still there. I might need an earwash kit. Yeah. Yeah, so everything is lazy loaded. Yeah, you can see in that homepage render that we are essentially dynamically importing the map only on the client side. And that also has to do with some of our dependencies. So like the dependency on Leaflet, the Leaflet library, is client side only. It depends on the document in the window existing. So if you try to import this component, which imports Leaflet on the server, then things break. So this absolutely has to be a client-side import anyways. So we would potentially have to find another library if we really wanted to do like server-side rendering of maps. Yeah. How's it check if a new entry made if it was not making DB lookups? Because when a new entry gets created, we tell it, hey, the homepage is no longer valid. The next time someone requests the homepage, you should not serve it from the cache. You should actually server render it, which will do that database lookup. So it's literally this call right here that tells Versal to invalidate that page. We did it last time. It probably took us 30 minutes to figure out why things were broken. Yeah, if you watch the last stream, it was towards the end. Because last stream is the first time we deployed. I think that's the main issue, though, is I don't know how I'm going to replicate those kinds of issues locally. I mean, I guess I could try Versal Dev. I don't know if it does the same thing, but it's really tricky because the way it behaves deployed is different than the way it behaves when I'm running the Next dev server. So yeah. Yeah, I'm going to Amsterdam in June. JS Nation. Quick shout out to JS Nation. So they are a JavaScript conference. The day after JS Nation is React Summit. I'll be there too. But I'm going to be an MC at this this conference. There I am. That's me. That's me. So if you're in Europe or you're near Amsterdam, definitely come say hello. And then React Summit is the other one. I won't be an MC at this one, but I'll be there. So cool. Yeah. Try to use Chakra with Next 13, but doing it requires use client in the root layout, which defeats the entire point. Can't even use get server-side props, so all data has to be fetched on the client. Not sure if there's any workaround. It gets tricky, right? I think that's the main issue, right? So with the new server components and client components, you really have to figure out the best way to like render your component tree to have the most of it server side rendered if you can, and then only have the stuff client side rendered that can be client side rendered. I don't have any experience with Chakra, and I guess potentially their layout components are client only, but that could potentially be the issue. But when you get into a more complex app with, I mean, I guess technically we do have a provider set up in here. So this travel log provider also is like client only. This is a client-side component that sets up a reducer with the context API, because all of this state is client-side, so that this provider actually needs to be client-side. And I think that's one of the issues you possibly run into with component libraries in React is they have like a theme provider, and those might have to be client-side components. That makes sense, Acid Spark. I'll have to look into it. I calculate the performance without dynamic. No, I didn't, and I'll be honest, I don't care, because it literally won't work without the dynamic import. Because this is using a library that is client side only, and so I only need it to load on the client side. So if I don't do this, then we see a bunch of errors in the console because it's trying to do client side stuff on the server. Olive oil? I don't know if I can trust that advice. What kind of dev server do you have issues with? Yeah. Next.js is okay. If you have ever worked with SvelteKit, or if you've ever worked with Nuxt, or if you've ever worked with Remix, in my limited experience, all of these are better than Next.js, and I would choose any one of those in my next project. I wouldn't choose Next.js. They provide a whole lot more than Next.js. It's cool. It's definitely cool, but I'm finding myself writing a lot of extra code in Next.js, which I don't like. I like things to be done for me or to like be built into the framework. Yeah. How do you justify the travel for a day or two? So if you work at a company, a lot of companies have like a professional development budget where they might give you $1,000 a year that you can spend on books or conferences or something like that. So if you work at a company that does that, then that could potentially help with costs to get to a conference. And in terms of justification, it's really just a matter of like networking and then also like learning new things, because so much is covered at a conference that, I mean, if you need to convince your employer, you could basically say it's like, it's going to make me a better developer, you know? So yeah, the libraries need to be updated if you do want that server-side rendering. Yeah. Wait, what? My elbow? I can't listen to, I mean, you might be sincere in your advice, but I'm not gonna trust Twitch chat for medical advice. I will do my own research. And what's up, Excavator? Welcome in. Hey, Nihal, glad to hear it. Welcome in. Yeah. Next.js is better than Gatsby though. Is it? I mean, at that point, like if you're using Gatsby, then like why wouldn't you use Astro, you know? I don't know. Olive oil? Wow. Okay, I might try it. Okay. Well, I'm not going to do it right now, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's the issue, right? So like T3 is not from the core team. It's like community maintained, and it technically like it has opinions. Like it basically they give you the opinions on how you should set up TRPC and then how you should configure that with your app. So that's fine, but the thing that I don't like about it is that all of that code lives in your code base. So when you generate an app with the Create T3 app, it's not hiding anything from you. It puts all of that code in your code base, which means now you're in charge of that code. Even though it's essentially boilerplate, right? It's the initial like setup and everything, but now that code is in your code base. There's a way of doing it and a way of providing that kind of functionality without needing to also maintain the code for it, is really all that I'm saying. Yeah. What React framework is most like SvelteKit in terms of data loading? I don't know. I mean, Remix is probably closer, but in my limited experience with Remix, it also is requires a bit more work. Yeah. Final verdict on Dino and Fresh. It's fine. I had to take a break from it just because it's very the ecosystem was very new. There's been a ton of updates in the Dino world, in the Dino ecosystem. Like if you just look at their recent blog posts on releases, like so much has changed. And like since, I mean, we stopped working on, I don't remember when we stopped working on Dino Fresh. It was like 2 or 3 months ago. But since then, they've added so much to Dino to allow you to like use node modules or use things from NPM, and a lot of stuff that would have made our lives a whole lot easier when we were working on Dino Fresh. I haven't had a chance to try all of these new things, but from what I'm reading, basically you can now benefit from the NPM ecosystem, whereas before it was very early days and you couldn't. So I would need to evaluate it again. Yeah. Yeah, welcome in, Duca. It really depends. If you are trying to find a job, you probably want to learn React, but it also depends on where you are in the world. Because not everywhere in the world, like React is not dominant everywhere in the world. It's definitely dominant like in the US, but in like Europe and Asia, Vue is definitely pretty popular. Angular is also pretty popular, like all over the place. I would say look at job postings if your goal is to get a job and see what people are asking for and then learn that thing. But it's probably going to be React. MC is I don't even know what it stands for, but it basically, I'm going to be introducing speakers on the stage and filling time in between speakers. Does anyone know what MC stands for? Motorcycle Club. Master of Ceremonies? No way. No way. I mean, when I think of MC, I think of like hip hop and someone potentially like manning the turntables. Those are also known as MCs. Is it Master of Ceremonies? That seems too formal. That seems way too formal. Okay, I'll take it, but I'll take it. David has some bits. That is why I don't like early adopting web tech. They're often very helpful features that haven't been added. Yeah, and it was less to do so with the Fresh framework, more so to do with the Dino ecosystem. Yeah. Microphone controller? What's the meaning in like hip hop? Okay, it also means Master of Ceremonies in the hip hop world as well. I've only ever known it as MC. So that's cool. Yes, I will be the Master of Ceremonies, but not definitely not the main Master of Ceremonies. I'm one of 4. I have no idea of the details yet, but I think there's a couple different tracks. They're probably going to put me across the street in the smaller track because nobody knows who I am. So, but yeah, I will be Master of Ceremonies. I've helped some people with some Ember apps. I've never had my own large Ember app. Yeah. SvelteKit does support static site generation. Yeah, coding.garden was built with SvelteKit, and this is statically generated. This is all completely static files, static pages after the build. But I'm using specifically the adapter static. We're hitting issues with Preact's server-side rendering. It doesn't have use client. Ooh, that's unfortunate. Next is cool. Next is cool. Yeah, I looked at State of JS. What's up, American 2050? This was scheduled. Are you kidding me? Am I off? Well, I mean, first of all, coding.garden. An author, thank you for the 4 months. You go here, you click on the schedule. Here we are. We're almost an hour in of today's stream. Yeah. Yeah. Main character? No. I'm just a guy. Come on. MC Hammer. So Master of Ceremonies Hammer. I had no idea. I had no idea. Mega chat. Let me know, make it pie. Well, I know there are a few bugs, but if you did find a bug, you can put it on GitHub. It's at this repo. If you want to open an issue, or make sure that an issue already hasn't been opened, because apparently there's 2 issues. Cool. Oh, cool, excavator. I'll set it up when we get closer. I'll probably create like a Discord channel where we can discuss specifics. But I'd love to like meet at a coffee shop or something the day before the conference for anybody that's going to be there that wants to say hey. Yeah. Oh, did I forget to sync the schedule with Twitch again? I'm pretty sure I forgot to sync the schedule. Yeah. Yeah. So oh, not with Coding Garden. This one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We have a fix for this. I'm gonna get caught up on chat, and then I'm just gonna start working because it's fun to talk, but I like writing code. Yeah, I forgot to update the Twitch schedule. Welcome in, Mendoza. Welcome in. All right, we're gonna go into focus mode so I can get some stuff done. First up, big thanks to Mr. American Mike, who opened up a PR for the map wraparound. So yeah, that's exactly the bug that someone just caught. So like, you'll notice that if we zoom way out, then the map repeats, and then the points aren't repeated on the map. So they essentially just added a prop. World copy jump true. And that makes it so that when you get another copy of the world, all of the points on the map are replicated. So once I merge this in, we should have that feature. So thank you to Mr. American Mike for that. Let's call this a bug. No, there's only one Japan. I guess technically there's one there, and there's one there, and there's one there. So yeah, that merged in. I'll pull that down. And then Mr. American Mike also opened an issue on cursor behavior. So hover is the word that you want. But if you hover over this, it should give us the grab icon, because technically you can grab and move this. That's what they were mentioning. J. Edgar hover. And then these, you should just be able to click those, which is fine. I can update that. Let me pull down these changes, and then we should get that map fix. Nice. And if I zoom out, yeah, they jump. So if I do like this, then the points jump over here. That's fine. So it's not replicating them on all of the copies, but as you pan, they move there, which is good. That's the behavior that we want. So thank you to Mr. American Mike. All right, let's work on this. Let's fix this issue right here, which is telling us that we can't pass date objects to the client side. So what's happening is on our homepage render, we're looking up all of the travel logs in the database, and then we're passing those down to this client component. But if you look at these, the visit date property is actually a date object. And this exists in MongoDB. Like, date is a native type in JavaScript, but also in MongoDB. But Next.js is complaining because it's like, hey, we're just going to stringify this object. We don't actually know how to serialize that. There are a lot of ways to go about this. Some people have mentioned super JSON. This is a way of serializing more complex things in your JSON that JSON doesn't directly support, because JSON only supports null, string, numbers, and objects and arrays. I think that's it. It doesn't support date objects. It doesn't support undefined. There's a lot of things that the JSON spec doesn't support, which is fine. Like, I mean, I've had a career for over 10 years, and the way JSON works has been fine for most of what I've been building. But it is pretty cool that if you do have these kinds of things and you want to send them from your backend and use them in your front end effectively, Super JSON basically gives you that. So when you do a JSON serialization of a date, it actually creates an object with property date, and on the front end, whenever you parse it, it knows to put it back into a date. So we could use something like this. What we also could do is not even use dates at all. we eventually might run into this issue anyways, but one thing we can do is we could change the schema for the stuff we're putting in the database. And Hugo Das, thank you for the resub. Appreciate you. So if you look at our models and our travelog model, yeah, so basically instead of a timestamp, or sorry, instead of a date object, it could be a Unix timestamp. Date in milliseconds. For instance, if you create a date dot get I don't think it's. Oh yeah, so that's the other issue is we're running into timestamp issues. Yeah. So that's the other thing to think about. So if you look at the deployed site and you look at this one, for me this says May 31st when in actuality it's June 1st. So we need to rectify that. The fact that like the dates in the database should be stored as UTC, and then locally we need to render that date as the user's time zone, which should happen by default. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, so May 31st instead of June 1st. Does anybody know what is the function that I want? And Rogue Soul, thank you for the 32 months. It's June 1st. Wait, I actually don't even know what that is. So get locale? No. Get locale string. I don't know why that's not Let's look at the date object on MDN because I'm for some reason I'm not getting the autocomplete of all of the possible methods. Let's look at the method. So get date, get day, get full year. I want a timestamp. So this get time returns a numeric value of the specified date as the number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. That's the function that I want. Like that. And that's what I'll store in my database. And then if I want to show like the date on the page, we'll parse it. We'll pass that number into a date object, which we should be able to do. So you can actually say a new date with that, and that gives you back a date where you can do stuff with it. So it's 2:02 p.m. my time, and if I do it again, that should be the same. But if I create a date without that, then you can see it's the current time, 2:04 p.m. So yeah, so that's a nice Unix epoch. And if you're new to this kind of stuff, the epoch is January 1st, 1970. Basically, all dates are calculated to that times. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Now, in our Zod validator, we I actually don't know that. I basically I want to say that it's a number, but then I think there's a way. So I don't think I even need to coerce it. Yeah, I think I do because, well, this is the other thing. So right now we were reusing this Zod validator for our front end and for our back end. Let's do this. We're gonna have one that corresponds to the data before it goes into our database. So we're gonna call this and the concept here is what do you call it? DAO, the data access layer, or DAO, data access object. So these are going to be our DAOs. Like one of them represents exactly as it is in the database. I don't know what we should call it. For now, I'm going to call it travelog database. And this is where we're not going to coerce anything. Like the thing that you send me, or the thing that's getting passed in here, should exactly be what is about to be put into the database. So the title is a string, the description is a string, the image is a string, which is a URL. Rating is a number between 0 and 10 that defaults to 0. Latitude and longitude are numbers between -90 and -180. Yeah, I mean, travelog database item. Help me come up with a good name. But the overarching programming concept is called data access object. So DAO. So the thing that we're sending from the client side will be slightly different than this because we'll also, I guess we'll be sending like either a number or a string date. But when we put it into the database, we can store it as dates. So yeah. And I guess the other thing is when we put it into the database, it doesn't have an API key. It only has an API key when it's being sent from the client side. So that's another thing that we can remove. Travel log entry. I like that. So that's travel log entry, and this will be like travel log request. So the thing we're sending from the client side. Travel log DTO. I like travel log entry. I do like that. And then travel log request, because this is what it looks like right before we put it into the database. And then, I mean, I guess technically we could coerce these. No, I guess we don't need to coerce it here because it gets coerced on the front end before it gets sent to the back end. So I'm happy with that. Let's take a quick stretch. Would I store the date as a Unix timestamp? Yeah, maybe we do need to do that, but I want to do some validation on it, which might be tricky. Like, I guess I could look up how do we validate a Unix timestamp. Does Zod have a built-in thing for Unix time? Let's look at the Zod docs and date time validation. So we don't want to do it as a string because if we store it as a timestamp in our database, we just want that. So coerce takes a string, or in this case, it's going to take a string and turn it into an actual value. So we need this on the client side because an input on the client side, by default, that value that we get back is a string. I know there's a lot of different ways to go about that, but the library we're using to get the data out of the form gives everything back as strings. So that is a thing. What if someone wants to upload a photo from 1941? Oh, negative timestamps work for Unix epoch. Yeah. How do you avoid hacking the app from the front end? We talked about it in the last episode. We basically locked it down. So if you go here, try your best. Try and hack it. But basically, if you don't know the API key, you can't put anything into the database. So this front end, the deployed front end, is locked down. All right, I'm just going to search the web for JavaScript validate Unix timestamp. Let's see what we get. Checking if I am receiving a valid Unix timestamp. Why did this question get downvoted? Moment has an is valid function. Yeah, that's one way to go about it. I think I like what you're saying, Hugo Das. Basically, there is, I believe it's called, is it parse? Or no, there's a way to pass in a custom function where you get the value and then turn it into the thing that you expect. Yeah, okay, that's a big, long, regular expression. It might make sense to bring in a, and I guess it's not even a Unix timestamp. It's in milliseconds. It might make sense to bring in a date library just for this, because I don't want to have some random regular expression. Validate if a string is a valid timestamp. Pass it into a date? Oh, you know what we could do? Yeah, pass it into a date and then see if it's equal to itself. So if we say, this is equal to a date with that number dot get time. Valid. But if I pass in like the number 2, wait, well, I guess that, I mean, yeah, something, I actually don't know. I think, doesn't this make sense though? Doesn't this like, wouldn't, I guess it wouldn't though, because if we're passing in, it doesn't make sense because if you pass the date as 2, if you look at the date constructor, the first argument to the date constructor means something. Yeah. And yeah, so any number is potentially a date, so that actually wouldn't work. Yeah, so that wouldn't work. So as long as it's a number, do we just care if it's a number? And I think negative numbers work. Yeah, I guess not. I guess we're just assuming that the client knows to send a timestamp. Yeah, and there is no min because a negative timestamp is before January 1st, 1970. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying, Game Freak. So like, date.js is nice because it's tree shakeable. You can basically bring in only the functions. Is it date.js or day.js? What's the one that I use? Not that. Not this one. Day.js? Date functions, that's the one. That functions. This one. This is the library I use. And it's nice because you import individual functions depending on what you want to do. So like if we wanted to pull in a formatting or a validator function, honestly, we might do that because I'll show you what we're doing on our front end form, which is not nice. We are so in order to set the value of the form date, yeah, that makes sense. Let me fix my code real quick. Here. We're just gonna keep calling this travelogue for now, so that the code still works. But check this out. So in order to populate this calendar thing with today's date, we actually have to turn that into a dash separated date. And you can see we're doing manual format string here. I'm taking a date object and I am turning it into year-month-day because in the web browser, if you want to preset the value of a date input, it has to be in that format. I don't like having this code in my code base. Like I feel maybe this is all we need, but it also feels like it could potentially be buggy. But what's nice is if we bring in date functions, they have an individual format function we can bring in that would do this for us. Because that's not built into the web browser. Now, there might be something in the temporal API that can do that formatting. I don't know if there is. But I do agree we shouldn't bring a dependency in unless we really need it. But now I'm thinking of two different things we would potentially want. We want date formatting, and we want, I don't know, is there like a validation? Is this a valid date? For the value convertible into a date. Yeah, so like we could use the is valid here. Yeah, so the issue with moment is it's a big old library that has everything built into it. And I mean, I think they might have changed this, but for a while they were modifying the date prototype. And so it's like not tree shakeable. Basically, you have this moment object and then it adds a bunch of functions to your annotated date object. Whereas date functions are individual functions that can be brought in one at a time. Only the ones that you want to use. Yeah, and so the people from Moment also created Luxon, which has a similar idea in that I do yeah, I don't know if this one actually is tree shakeable. But yeah, so a lot of older apps use Moment, but these days I would reach for something like date functions or Luxon. We're gonna pull in date functions. I have decided. We're gonna install this as a dependency. Because that will give us the isValid function and the format function. Here we go. There are only 2 thresholds for valid Unix dates. Wow. -8 million, billion, trillion. What comes before or after trillion? Okay, so I'm gonna install date functions, and this is gonna be great. Can JavaScript handle that as an integer? Probably can't. Quadrillion? Quintillion? Quadrillion. I don't even know if JavaScript. Yeah, it can't. No, it can't because even I don't know how big a big int is, but a regular int is only so big. 2243. By that time, if we're still using JavaScript, we've got problems. But now, I believe is it somebody mentioned in the chat? Is it .custom on our validator here? Let's look at the Zod documentation. How do we get create a custom validator? do I just not do it as a number? So just if I just do dot custom, and then this check function takes in the data, and then what does this check function do? It let's look at the type definition. That's more than I can handle. That's more than my feeble brain can handle. Let's look at the type definition that pops up. So it takes in the date. Tell me. And then does it throw an exception or does it return false? Returns false. Returns false. That's it. Okay, because it's doing a valid. So what we want to do is we want to bring in is valid from date functions like this. And what's nice is that like this is nice and tree shakeable because we have only that one function. It is listed in the dependencies. The editor hasn't restarted yet. But now I can say is valid with the data. And then we just return that. That's it. Yeah. So yeah, you're totally right, Hugo Das. We can literally pass in is valid. I don't think is valid takes more than one argument. Yeah, that's it. Boom. Cool. And we could even rename this. So is valid date to be really clear what we're doing there. Is valid. Yeah. Yeah. So if this returns true, I also want to I want to make sure that it is a number, not a date object, because technically, if someone passed a date object into this would work. Because if you see how their is valid function works, you can pass a date object into it. So I want to check that it is a number and it is. I'm gonna do this. Return a type of data is number, and it is a valid date. Like that. That's the winner. Is transform the function I'm looking for? Transformer? Robots in disguise? Can I don't think I can chain number to custom. Yeah, I can't do that. So that's what I was looking for, Noko, is refine. Let's look at that in the docs. Refine. It takes in a thing, does the validation. Yeah, so I think I want to do this with number and then refine that number. What? Oh, just my linter. Yeah. Is valid and is valid date. Oh no, I literally renamed it to is valid date. So is valid comes from there, but you can name whatever you want because it's a default export. Yeah, so I'm basically importing that one function and renaming it to is valid date. But this is, and then I don't have to do this anymore because now we already know it's a number. After we know it's a number, we want to make sure that it's a valid date. Right? Right? I think this seems good. Okay. But now on the front end, we can do this. So, yeah, so you're right. We can literally just pass it in now. We're getting there, everybody. We're getting there. It takes me a second. So now, for visit date, it's actually not going to be on the front end. I think it's going to be, we'll have to confirm this, what the value is going to be on the front end. It's whatever the value gets set to when the input type is date. I think it might be a string. And then we could refine that. Well, the refine is a check. Basically, I want to turn that into, or transform it into a number after we chorus it from a date. we need error messages? So we can pass in an error message here like this. Say like invalid, or say something like visit date must be a valid timestamp. Something like that. We'll put that in here. Well, thank you, Dara. Welcome in. We have a period. We capitalize it like that. So this will be errors.that. Welcome in, Abder. Yeah, definitely check out Anthony Wright's code. He does a whole lot of Python. Anthony Wright's code. Did that work? That's him, yeah. Yeah, definitely check him out. All right. Who hates what I've done here? I think we're doing all right, because now we're gonna validate visit date as a timestamp. But I think the one thing that I want to do is on the front end, we're parsing everything, but then before we send it to the back end, I need to convert this date into a number. Let's update these things real quick. So like I'm gonna update to use these types specifically. Because now we have the travel log entry, and then travel log properties we'll use the travel log request. Like that. And at this point, I need to consolidate these two, right? So like there's some commonalities between them. The main difference is visit date and API key. So what I probably want to do is I want to create a base and then extend from it. So we'll have like the base validation, like this, and then that's not going to have visit date or API key. And then, we'll comment that out for now. And then travel log request, isn't there like a z.extend or base validation.extend? Yeah, so we extend it with these two properties. Like that. And then similarly, we do this, not that, like that. But visit date gets put in here. And then there is no API key. Okay, so I think we're getting closer. We have our base validation with our common validations. We have the version of that validation for when we're sending it from the client side. We need to confirm this to do. Confirm type and convert to timestamp. And then from the client side, we're sending the API key. But before we put it into the database, it does not have an API key, so that won't be on there, but the date will actually be a number that is a valid timestamp. That looks good to me. Now we need to use these types. And let me reload my window because it didn't know about date functions. Oh, and thank you, Dayroy. Yeah, or Dayro. Second year since you've been subbed. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for being here. Is that final user message or developer message? It's used, so these show up potentially on the client side form. All right, first let's fix our API. Our API needs to use this validator now. So let's do that over here. So this should be complaining or not. It definitely should be complaining. And the 10, thank you for that sub. We export travel log entry. We're no longer exporting travel log. This is not valid anymore. Yeah, okay. So I need to update it here. So we're going to import travelog entry and export travelog entry. And then with ID is a database specific thing because we can now take this schema we defined with Zod here for the entry and then also annotate it with a MongoDB ID. Cool. And then now this should complain because it's like, hey, travel log is not a thing. We now want travel log entry. And you can see here that we were deleting the API key. I think we'll do that. Now we can do that beforehand. And then when we validate it, it won't have the API key. So here we can say request.body. We're going to delete the API key from the request body. Because basically the request body needs to have the API key so that way we can validate it. But then before we put it into the database, we remove that API key from it. And then now this should be a valid object that can be put into the database. So we should be good there. Now where things are going to break are the client side. Because on the client side, we were using that same Zod validator before. So let's fix it. So now this is going to be travelog request instead of travelog. And then this will be a travelog request. Why is this complaining? Oh, we need to also create the types for it in our validators. Here, so not here. Here. So we created the types for travelog entry, but we also need the type for travelog request. It should be as easy as this. Does that? Yeah, it still errors. And I am Thomas Elder. Thank you very much for the prime. Appreciate you. But now we can do the same thing with travelog request. And now in the form, we have the type, we have the validator. And then now I think this is the issue. So like the date here, I think needs to be a string. And then before sending it, we convert it into a number. I think. Yeah, and 14 fish, like basically anytime you have some client-side JavaScript, you have to put use client on it. You essentially have to really think hard about how you can extract out the pieces that can be server-side rendered so they can be in server components, but at least that's what I'm finding. All right. Now we're in the boat where we need to like validate, like we need to do the right thing on the front end. First up, let's not do this manual parsing of the date anymore. Let's bring in the format function from date functions. This one. I'm going to call it format date, just to be clear. That. And then now the now string is going to be format date with right now. And then we can pass in the format string, which is going to be year, month, day, like that. Yeah. Yeah, so Game Freak is asking, does React do hydration like Next does? As far as I know, like hydration is like a Next thing. Like the React library itself wouldn't handle that. Technically, server components come from React. Like the fact that we can do this kind of stuff is because those are now built into React. But now Next.js is using server components to give us that feature there. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have much Next.js resources yet, 14 Fish. I mean, this is really I've worked in Next.js before, but this is one of the first open source apps I'm working on. I'm still trying to keep it pretty simple. Like I think we can expand a lot from here. I think some people have mentioned create T3 app. You can definitely learn a lot just from generating a T3 app and seeing all of the stuff that it does. So definitely check that out. But eventually, I hope to have some pretty big code bases that I can use as an example. Welcome in, John. Glad to have you. What are we doing? I feel like our app is broken. So we updated this. Let me make sure that I have the format function right. Format. Calendar year is lowercase y. T3. I can link you. T3 app. Create T3 app. This one. Oh, not 5. 4. 4 year. And then month is capital M and day of the month is DD. So I got that right. Okay. So when we open up the form, this should now be okay. And we're passing that initial value as a string. I think what we need to do, so like I don't want to see this TypeScript error. I think the travel log request needs to actually have this as a string. Like visit date is a string, and then we refine it from there. And this gets a little bit trickier. Then we don't need the coerce anymore. So the form sets the date to be a string, I believe. Let's confirm that. Let's see before we submit the data. What is the underlying, like what's the browser setting that date property as? So now when we submit the form, it's going to skip all that, but it's just going to log the data out so we can see what the string value is. I think our front end will potentially be broken now. Like when we're displaying the dates on the map itself, that might be broken. Yeah. Okay, use DD instead of DD for formatting days. Really? You're right. Thank you. Thank you. Like, hey, you probably wanted that. Okay, so we're gonna add a travel log. We grab that image location, and then we click create. Visit date must be a valid timestamp. That makes sense. Our validator is we need to fix that. Because right now we're passing, I think it's passing a string in. For now, let's just say that this is a string, so that way we can actually get the data back. Yeah. What if we change it to be some other date? Yeah, so in the browser, if you're using the native date picker, it's always going to set it as a string. So that's great, or that's fine. That's fine. So like, it's going to be a string, and then we actually want to, yeah, so we need to use transform somewhere. So basically the front end is going to send data that looks like this. So let's start there. So because the front end is sending data that looks like that, we are going to say that the travel log request, the date is a string. And then we can do the further validation. or like, is it a valid date string? Yeah, I was thinking, like, because what we were doing earlier is we were saying coerce into a date, and this worked, but then our TypeScript type says that visit date is a date, and we don't want that because the form, and when we're setting the values, we need to set it to a string. So I'm going to keep it a string, like this, but now we need to validate it further to make sure that string is a valid date. Yeah, so refine comes from Zod. You basically get the value, and then you can do more validation on it. So coerce date transform, I guess I'm not familiar enough with the transform function. Transform data after parsing. Oh. But then what will be the type? I guess that's what I'm worried about, is what will be the type in the the type in the generated thing. So this is the date, and we want a date like this, but we want to, or get time. But I think the issue there is now visit date. Let's look at the travel log request type. See, now visit date is a number. And we don't want that because the form needs it to be a string. So we really don't want to refine it until we are sending it to the server. So it's using the type of what's returned from transform. Yeah, get time is a number, which is fine. Oh, but the thing is, we don't want it. We don't want it a string. So okay, first of all, let's make sure that this is a valid date string. We'll at least do that. Visit date string. I'm gonna create another error for this. Visit date must be a valid date. Yeah. Okay. So it's going to be a string. Great. But what that means is when it's sent from the client side, on the server side, we need to convert possibly a string into a timestamp. And I think we can do that here. Right? So right now we're assuming that it's a number, but what we could do is say assume that it's it can be a string or a number. Could we do number or z dot string? And then if it's a string, we turn it into a date and then get the timestamp from it. So yeah, now date is going to be a string or number. So we can do special stuff here. I like this. So if the type of date is a string, then we want to turn it into a number. So we're going to create a date with that date, and we'll say get time. We'll say timestamp initially is date. You're right. We want transform, and then we also want refine after that. Okay. So if it's a string, turn it into a date and get the time. And then we still actually, we still want that refine to say, okay, now that we have the timestamp, is it a valid timestamp? And then this is now the visit date timestamp. Yeah, so I think we can say, well, can we throw an error inside of transform? Because I think we would want to do that, because we want to say if it's a string, we want to make sure that it's a valid date string. And we can do is valid date with the date. And if it's not, throw an error. Invalid date string. Will this work? We can test it. But I think we're on the right track now, because if we look at travel log entry, now visit date is a number. But when we're doing the parsing, it can be a number or a string. And if it's a string, we're going to make sure that it's a valid date and then grab the actual time from it. Do I want a Zod error? Maybe I do. And then what does a Zod error want? It wants an array of issues. I feel like if I just throw a regular error, it'll wrap it in a Zod error. We could try it. Let's try it. Yeah, let's try it. And we can try it just by sending an HTTP request with like Insomnia. Because in Insomnia, we can pass in the date. I think, honestly, we could just try, I think we can try it from the page itself. Because now we're taking in this, it is a string. And then when we send it, it's going to be a string. So it should be okay with that. But then when it receives it on the API side, it's going to parse it with that other one, which will turn it into a timestamp. Let's try it. Test it in production. I mean, we're not really in production yet, but I think it should just work. One thing I need to do is I need to convert all of the values in my database to be a timestamp instead of a date. So that way we can get rid of this error. But for now, we should be okay. Refine before the transform? Let's see. Yeah, that's a good point, I think, right? Right? Yeah, and then I don't have to do this here. Yeah. We're just using Zod. So we're using Zod to define our validators, and then we're using MongoDB. But it's super simple because we're just using the type generated by Zod with the core MongoDB library. So we're telling MongoDB that we have a collection of entries of this type, and now we get the right types whenever we do any sort of queries. So here, if I do find everything to an array, that gives me back with that type that we defined. The other aspect of that is, I mean, MongoDB doesn't validate stuff before you put it into the database. So we're manually doing that whenever we in the API handler. So here, right before we put it into the database, we're parsing it. So I'm just going to do some logging here. So we'll say before parse is going to be rec.body, and then after parse will be the validated log. And what we're hoping is this one is going to show us the timestamp as a string, and this one's going to show us the timestamp as a timestamp, as a number. So let's go. Add a travel log. I'm going to put it right there. Test. That's the image, rating of 10. We'll choose the date as February 1st and click create. Visit date must be a valid date. Oh, okay. So here's the other thing is, I mean, man, The date object in browsers is horrible. Okay, so here's what we're dealing with. Yeah, test fail because we formatted it using so much back and forth. But look, we turned it into this format. And in the browser, you can't pass this format into a date object. So it's like we need to convert it from that to a date object before. But let's just confirm that, right? So like if I try to create a new date, let's take a quick stretch. Yeah, we're gonna have to use the parse function, but let's confirm this. If we pass in, yeah, so a dash, I mean, I say yeah, so, but, wait, it likes that. I think you don't see. I'll look into that in just a second. So so we actually removed the throw because in our refine we're making sure that it's a valid date. I don't think so, Hugo. Capital Y corresponds to the local week numbering year. Wait, what's the difference? Calendar year. We want calendar year, which is why I did YYY. But this error is being thrown by this validator right here. Let's do this. Oh, I think that's the issue. I think we need a further we need a transform here because the is valid function from date functions does not like the dashed case one, I think. Like you can't pass a string into this function. I think that's where it's erroring out. Let's see. Yeah, so validating, we get the string like this, and then here it needs it to be a date. I guess that's fine, honestly, because if I do a new date object with it, like this, now it's going to be valid. It's still going to be sent as a string from the client side, and then on the server, we're going to turn it into a timestamp. That seemed to work. If we look at our server-side logs, yeah. Did our server not log? Did we not save the file? We should see these logs, so before parse and after parse. Here we go. Before the parse, the visit date is that string, which is set on the client. And then after parse, it must have thrown an error. Visit date must be a valid timestamp. Are we not catching that error? Or did it respond with it responded with a 200 status code? That's not okay. that's not okay. we always, otherwise we need to make this a 500 status. I think that was a bug from last time. This error should have been shown on the client side. Let's restart everything. Honestly, I kind of want to wipe my database so that way I'm not seeing this error in the console anymore. Let me do that really quick. What Hugo said. Refine is not changing it to date within the backend side. Okay, we'll fix that in a second. I want to see the full logs though. Yeah, we're using Next.js. Okay, we're back. There's nothing in our database now, so we can start from scratch. Let's add a thing. Maybe I was right to transform before the refine. You telling me Twitch chat was wrong? Yeah. Well, yeah. Because now on the server side, this was it. Because now on the server side, the string is going to do this, and then actually I do want to do is that, okay. I think you're right. And then if it's not, this is where people are telling me that I shouldn't just throw a regular object. But validating during transform. You must use context.addIssue. Sounds good to me. Do I get the context in the transform? Yeah, nice. Then we got to create an issue, though. What does an issue have? All of these things. Is there like an issue helper? Oh, we just need a code and a message. Easy. Easy. Also, super refine? How is that different than transform? Why no GitHub Copilot? Because I like hard mode. Nice, Stephen talking. Got a job offer in C# with nothing but Python experience. What are your thoughts? Horrible idea? No, you'll be fine. I mean, C# and .NET, there's a lot of documentation on it. I think it's pretty easy to get up to speed on it. So you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And also, there's a lot more in. I feel like I don't have as much experience with Python, but I do feel like there's a lot more experience in, or a lot more in the .NET ecosystem in terms of like the standards for like database libraries and API libraries and stuff like that. So I think you'll be fine. Great. Thank you, Brilvio. You're really helping out today. Yeah, I think that's the thing, Game Frank, is like you might actually you probably are going to be, well, I guess it depends. Are you going to be able to use Copilot on your job because of like legal issues? Like I don't know the licensing of the code that Copilot generates, but it's possible that If you're working in a proprietary code base and you're using Copilot and it generates something that came from an open source code base with something like the GPL license, you could get into trouble. So yeah, Super JSON would have been cool, but we still need validation is the thing. Like, and this whole issue with so it's like it's multifaceted because when the form loads on the front end, this needs to be a string, not a date. So we still need a separate type. And then when we send it, we need to parse it. So it's like, I don't know how much Super JSON would have saved us. You know? You know? Yeah. Yeah, and I was trying to, I don't know if Copilot does that, but like, is Copilot learning from the code that you write? Because then if you do that, then that's potentially an issue for your company as well. And Rossum, thank you for the gifted. I appreciate that. You're kind. You're very kind. All right, we've done it. First try. Watch it. Reload the page. I want to visit a place right there. That's my image, a rating of 10. I visited this on February 1st. Let's look at the console. Go. Invalid date string. Visit date must be a timestamp. Oh, I forgot. If it's a string, then we need to pass it into a date object like this. But we have an issue. We need to convert these Zod errors into more human readable stuff. Yeah. All right. Moment of truth. Failed to revalidate. Invalid response. Let's look and see what happened. So before the parse, it was a string. After the parse, it was a visit date timestamp. So that's good. That's very good. Very good. But, well, no, it still responded with a 500 error. let's look at the actual response here. Failed to revalidate. Oh. This is the Next.js error. Because here we're saying, hey, you created the thing, so invalidate the home page. And then, oh, we still need serialization because the ID property is an object ID. Man, but let's fix that now. That shouldn't be an issue though. It's technically in our database. If we refresh, yeah, it shows up there. I don't know why all of a sudden Next.js is erroring out instead of just warning us. Let's try again. Yeah, doesn't like this. But also, why are we not seeing the error on the front end? Only create server context is supported in server components. Regardless, we need to do this. We need to when we're rendering the home page, we need to convert those IDs. For now, I'm just going to do this in line, but I think it would make sense to have like a queries function that does this for us. Because now we want to say log dot. Oh, it's a promise. I need to do this. Log.id equals log.id.toString. So convert that object ID into a string. Hopefully that fixes that thing. Let's see. All right, we've only got one thing on the map. We're going to add a new thing right there. It still had an issue revalidating. It's in the database though. Failed to revalidate, invalid response 200. I'm also baffled as to why it's completing even though there is a no, so this should throw an exception and then this code will never run. Like technically it's in the database, but this throws an exception. This responds with a 500 error, and then we should see that error on the client side. So in the form, we're trying to watch for that because we make the post request, and if the response is okay, then we navigate. But if it's not okay, we show the message. And for whatever reason, we're not showing the message. It's like immediately close. Oh, but then when it actually, like the revalidate is working, which causes the page to refresh and closes the form. I think that's the issue. Which also makes me think we probably don't really even want to use router.push. Instead, we want to tell the parent component that it needs to re-request the list of logs. Yeah. I don't know if I tested revalidate on the client here. Like it works on Versal, but it could be an issue with doing it locally. First of all, let's just see why this is happening. And I think it's possible that because I'm trying to I'm inside of a client component here. The form is a client component, and I'm trying to navigate to a server page, and that's potentially giving me this warning here. So maybe I'm not supposed to do that. Yeah, the Zod validation is good now. Yeah, at this point, and honestly, like here's the thing: is I actually don't even need to when I'm running this code locally. I don't need to revalidate. It seems to work without the revalidation because I didn't have to add that until the deploy. Let's just test that thinking really quick. So let's say I add one down here. Easy, right? It's done. It's there. There's no errors here. This still has that same it's still complaining, but the revalidate is what's killing it when it's running locally. So we'll have to fix that. Um, oh, because I'm creating a when I navigate or like during the render, it's attempting to create the context because I created a client-side context here. Do I have to do use client here? This isn't even a. It doesn't even have JSX in it. I think I need to do that. And then on the page, only import the provider on the client side, maybe? Let's try that. Because the provider is bringing in the context, which is trying to run on the server. There we go. So now that's only imported on the client side for providing. It's still happening. I need to define use client at the top. I've done that. So in our context, we're using client. Server only context. Hmm. Is that happening on the initial page render? It is. Okay. Um, I need some logs. I need Next.js to give me more information. Don't ask me that, American 2050. I don't know if you had a genuine question or not, but I honestly I want to be done with it. Okay. There might be like a debug mode or some kind of logs. Debug. Like I need Next.js 13 to tell me what line of code is this happening in, because I mean I think it has to do with the fact that we're bringing in the provider here. But the thing is, I just told it not to server side render, but like on the initial page render, uh, and it's trying to pull in the context, but I've only defined it here. I think let me make sure all the components that are doing client side stuff have this. Use client. Use client. Everything in here. That's a client component. The map is a client component. The sidebar is a client component. What's up, CM Griffin? Welcome in. Maybe I was missing it on those couple of components. Yeah. Um, I just don't. I don't get it. It is only a warning, and the app still works, but I don't know what to do because all of our components that are using the context in the provider, they are set as client-side components. We're even dynamically importing that provider and telling it not to server-side render here. I guess technically I might have an update to Next.js. Maybe this is a bug. Let's upgrade in case there is an upgrade available. The spinner component can be client-side. I don't have it in there. I decided it's just HTML, so this one can be a server component. What's up, Valentine Codes? All right. We've got updates everywhere. Next font, types node. Next, we're updating to version 13.2. So we're going to update everything and then see if that fixes anything or if anything breaks. Yeah, I don't know, Hugo Das. I mean, am I dynamically? I mean, maybe it gets confused. I did think I was. Because, yeah, we're just importing it directly and then showing it when the thing is loading. The thing I use is called npm-upgrade. It interactively shows you what all your updates are. Yeah. Okay, let's start it back up. We've broken everything. Great. The next font package will be removed in Next 14. That seems fine. No, we have to do this. Like, if we're gonna be on the latest version, we got to fix any bugs. So I think I wasn't even using Next font, so I just removed that dependency altogether. And then this was also saying head.js is being used in route. Please migrate to the beta one. So more stuff has changed that we need to update. The metadata API. So right now we've got a head here. Built-in support for SEO through metadata. I don't have a head.js. Mine is head.tsx. Is that the same thing? I hope it's the same thing. Default metadata. There are two default. It's not the same. There are two default meta tags. Ignore that for now. Replace head with an API. Here. I see. Well. Thank you, Hugo Das. Have a good one. Thank you for tuning in. In this case, I'm just exporting metadata. It'd be great if there was a migration guide. I guess because it's beta, there's no migration guide. Oh, here we go. Right, view the migration guide. All right. Before export default function head, which is what I'm doing here. Okay, so this has now been replaced. Now I want to export metadata. Why is this cursor so off right now? It's fine. I'll type it out. But this needs to happen now in... So basically all of this, if I'm changing anything, moves into the layout file. So I can literally delete head.tsx. And then in the layout file, I need to export some metadata. With some of this. Title is travelogue. How do I do a meta tag? Cool. Cool, but I want a custom meta tag. Is it just an object? I just do meta, and then that's an array with 2 objects in it? And then link. Rel icon. I mean, I probably don't need to set this one because it's set automatically, but I do need to set this because I'm setting user scalable to no, which is not the default. Let's see. Let's see if this works. I don't think it's going to work because I didn't see it anywhere in their docs. I need to figure out how do we override these. Oh, thank you. August. Appreciate you. Did I do this right? Let's see. It's not complaining. Let's see if it actually sets those properties. Okay. Now literally nothing shows on the page. So, the client-side component is no longer loaded in. All right, they might have changed something about dynamic import. Let's make sure we're doing that right. So we are... also, I didn't even check if this worked. But I don't think it worked. Because if we look in the head, do we have... Yeah, we don't have the content and we don't have our description. So I don't know how to set that. Oh, you don't put a meta tag. You just name it. This API does not make sense to me. So meta name equals robots content equals index. Now when you write it, you say robots index true. Can I just do description? And then viewport. Content. Yeah, I could import the generate metadata function. Let's just see if this does anything though. Head. We got a description. Good. So description was right. The way we set the description is good. How do I set the viewport? Or did I set it right? I'm not seeing the meta viewport anymore. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's. I wonder if there's a blog post associated with it. Um. I can't put tags inside of this object though, so I don't know. Let's see. Is it the Versal YouTube channel? This one. 13.2. Is there a associated blog post? Yeah. So we got title and description. How do I override the viewport? We can import the type. let's import this type and see if it's gonna help any. Viewport like that? That'd be nice. Here's the thing. There's a bunch of other server rendered frameworks that work this way. So like if you've ever used Next.js, you basically pass it like an object. It converts that into a thing. I think SvelteKit can do a very similar thing. This is just like a brand new API that doesn't behave like anything I've used before. All right. We got a description. We got a viewport. Yeah, so that worked. Good. Good guess, Sandora Mix. So that was it. You just basically set viewport. All right, and then we want to set the icon. Icons is an array of objects with a href. Yeah, this is it. So I added this type, so now I'm getting type completion, which is nice. Missing hash, host, hostname, and origin. No. No, I'm not gonna. Okay, so it can just be an individual icon. That. Can it be a string? It can be a string. Yeah, this API sucks. You heard it here first. Like, I appreciate the idea of being able to share metadata, but This it's not intuitive. It's not like anything I've used before. And you've invented a brand new API that I now have to learn. Okay. But that I think that worked. Yeah, so now we have an icon, we have our viewport, our description, our title. Great. So we've updated to the latest metadata. Now my app is not rendering and I have no logs telling me why. Try remix. I don't know. I need to just retire. Is all it is. So now we need to debug this. And what is happening is it's rendering the body and it's only rendering the root component. It's not actually rendering. It's true, Acid Spark. Yeah, there's no errors in the console. So yeah, but so Travelog Provider, we recently updated to be dynamic. Let's see what happens if we don't make it dynamic. Let's just try importing it directly. And see if there's a fix there. Okay. Okay, so now we're not dynamically importing the provider at least. Let's see if anything happens. We're closer. Cool. Yeah, we're closer, but now this is not loading at all. All right. Let's also try to not import this. I think it's possible they fixed some bugs because I have had this map defined as a client component, but before, if I tried to import it directly, it was still trying to server-side render it. So maybe they fixed that. Maybe we can just import it directly. Seems to work. But this is the issue. Window is not defined, and this is coming from Leaflet. So basically, I need to dynamically import map on the client only so that it doesn't try to import Leaflet on the server side, which is why I had it this way. But now it's not importing that component at all. Yeah. And light modes, thank you. Thank you for that resub. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I guess I should be careful with my complaints because I know it's in beta. I know things are going to change. But I still like things to be intuitive, you know? But, you know, I guess everyone has their own definition of intuitive. This is broken. Yeah. Yeah. And it's tricky. Like, ultimately, the problem actually is with Leaflet because Leaflet shouldn't assume. I mean, I guess it's a client-side library. It can assume there's a window, but there's a way to write the library so that it doesn't try to access the window unless it actually exists. But a callback that imports the function. What am I doing? It's same thing. That shouldn't change it. This is the same thing. I guess you're right, because then that would run it on the client side. Did that change? Yeah, that was it. That's really funny, because this worked before. In version 13.1, this worked. And now it doesn't work. So that's fascinating. But yeah, you're totally right. Thank you, Sandora. You're helping me with all the issues. I appreciate it. Fascinating. But here's the thing. Now that we've done all of that, we don't get this server context thing. Just guessing. I mean, it's a good call out because like I'm lost in it. I've been looking at these docs so much that I didn't notice this. But the thing is, it was working before. So, okay. Good. We're back. We've reached feature parity. Now we can fix the other thing. But basically by doing this, it no longer complains about the server context, create server context, because we weren't even importing it in a server component to begin with. So that's good. Next, let's see if we can get this revalidate working. So working before was most likely a bug since it was eagerly importing. Yeah, now that I think about it, this didn't make sense, right? Because if I have the import in line, then that means it would try to import it on the server side anyways. Because when this code executes, it would immediately do the import. So I'm surprised it worked before regardless. And I guess that's probably why we were getting that warning before, is because it was actually importing it on the server side. Huh. Cool, but we fixed it. That's good. Yeah, so let's try to get this revalidate thing working again. Let's see if the latest version fixed that. So what should happen is if I add a new thing, failed to revalidate, invalid response. Yeah, I agree with that, CM Griffin. Because yeah, dynamic. I guess that's potentially a fix that needs to happen. Is like dynamic, should not accept a direct import. It needs to only accept a callback. But maybe the types overlap. I don't know. No, this is a different one. This is just a list of places that I've visited. Um, everyone's calling it FreshSpots 2.0, and it kind of is. But at the same time, there's no login. You're not creating lists. It's just one map with a bunch of points on it. Okay. Let's see if we got any other weird errors. I'm gonna remove these logs because the parsing seems to be working now, so that's good. That's good. So in the API, we don't need to do this anymore. Basically, we're sending it from the client side, and then we don't need to TS ignore anymore because we fixed all the validations and types. But this line of code right here, we are saying we want to revalidate the homepage because at this point there are new items on the map for the homepage. Regenerate it using on-demand incremental static regeneration. The path should be an actual path, not a rewritten path. Let's look at the docs. On-demand revalidation. Oh, res.json. Oh no, they're using revalidated, I think, on the client side. Right? Because they are doing revalidate right here. I guess we should probably inspect this error. See if we get any more details. Because there could be something more telling in there. So let's try again. Invalid response. Successful status code. It was too valid. Does it need some other code? Yeah. I don't think I searched the web. Let's search for this error now. Testing on-demand revalidation during development to verify your on-demand ISR configuration is correct when running locally with Next. You'll need to create a production build and start the production server. Did you pull that from the docs? Are you like, just read the docs, CJ? Let's find it. I guess so, and that's totally fine by me. I think basically what we need to do is now we just need to wrap this in a, are we in production, and if we are, revalidate. Otherwise, don't. So, on-demand revalidation. Testing. Okay, here we go. To verify your on-demand ISR configuration is correct, you'll need to create a production build. Okay, yeah, I think we'll just wrap it in a, are we in production? Easy. Couldn't it tell us that? couldn't it be like, hey, you're in dev mode and that revalidation isn't going to work? Okay. Let's go to Europe right there. Create. Nice. Nice. All right, let me remove this client-side console log. Travel log form. Oh no, this is going to be in the validators. Revalidate. Yeah. So exactly what America 2050 says. Basically, our homepage here does a database query. So when the page initially renders, it queries the database to get that list of logs to show on the client side. But technically, this server render can be cached until the things in our database change. And when I deploy this to Versal, it automatically does all of that for me. So basically, if I don't call revalidate, it's just going to cache the server-side rendered homepage with no travel logs on it, and then we would never see any new ones that get added to the database. So what we're doing is, in the back end, whenever we make a post request, that's when the actual database changes, and that's when we need to do revalidate, because then when anyone new comes to our homepage, we need to make sure that that page re-renders with the latest data from the database. Yeah. Honestly, one of the coolest things that you get with Next.js and Versal, it's all kind of just built in, which is nice. What was I doing? Let's see. We're now okay. I think we're at the point where now, instead of doing this on the client side, basically this is our serialization. We need to turn those MongoDB IDs into strings. And so we're serializing it in line. I think technically what I should do is I should have like a shared data access layer where we do this, so that way anytime we need the list of logs, we can call that directly. Let's see if there's an option. What was I doing? Yeah, there's just so much. I'm gonna look at the MongoDB docs to see if there's an issue, or if you have the ability to get back the data with strings as object IDs. Object ID to string? Well, that's the issue, America 2050, and we ran into that last time, is when we deployed to production, we created several, but no matter refreshing the page or whatever else, no matter what we did, we couldn't see it. And so we had to call revalidate, so that way it would stop, it would cache a new server rendered version. Yeah. I'm just curious if there's a way to update this find to give me back IDs that are strings instead of object IDs. Oh, we can use the aggregate. Hey. Hey. What is my opinion on context? Should they be used on multiple states and their methods? Like cart context, like shopping cart? I don't know if I have an opinion. I mean, you can see the context I created. One thing is the map object. So inside of this sidebar, we needed access to the map object, and then also in the parent, whenever we click on the map, we needed the access to that map object so that way we can zoom. So we created a context that gives us access to that map. The other thing is our context is storing the currently added marker like that, because we need to be able to access that latitude longitude inside of the sidebar. So the map, the current marker that we're trying to add, and whether or not the sidebar is opened or closed, because we wanted to set that from multiple places. So because all three of those things need to be accessed in multiple places, sibling components and also like nested components, it made sense. I thought it made sense to pull it into a context. So are you saying one context per thing? Because right now we have a single context with all of that stuff, and I can show you. Basically, we have our overall context that has this state object, and then we have so in the state object has these three properties, and then we have a reducer with various ways of changing those properties. Yeah, so I'm not using Mongoose. I am just using MongoDB. So I think I have to use aggregate. Yeah, I would want to split it up, like same way you would in a like a Redux app, where you have like substores. So just like CM Griffin is saying, so the context can be segmented. The way you might separate Redux or Zustand. That's how I would do it, because yeah, you don't just want one store, because then it becomes just as cumbersome as like actual global variables. You still want to put it into groups or like substores or subcontexts, so it's a bit easier to keep track of where things are and where things are changing. All right, let's try to aggregate. Chiago, thank you for the 5 months. Appreciate you. Yeah. Yeah, one less dependency, and this is literally all we needed it for. We have 3 state variables that need to be shared throughout, so I didn't think we would pull in Redux. Let's try to aggregate. Let's see if this aggregate. We pass it into a pipeline. The pipeline has what? Let's go look at the docs. I don't know. I don't know how to use the aggregate function on MongoDB. Just use a huge singleton as a store. You could. You could. Really, we want collection dot aggregate. Show me some examples. So we have all of these orders, and we want to toString. So match, group, and sort, they're using project. What is the project aggregator? Is that a thing? It's specific to what the queries that they're doing. And basically, to talk about why I'm even doing this, when you do this, this is happening in my application code. This is happening, in this case, if I deploy it in a serverless function. The serverless function gets the data back from the database, and then in memory converts everything. If I can set this aggregate up right, then the conversion from object ID to string happens in the database. So then you don't have application code running it, which is why I'm trying to do it this way. Let's see. I'm gonna copy this. I don't know what exactly is happening here. Project ID. Your object ID field is ID, right? I honestly don't know. To array. Gives me back an array of document. Ask ChatGPT. Okay. Let's see. Well, it broke it. It gave us back an array with the underscore ID. That's nice. How do I get all the other properties? Because that worked. That did it. But really, I want all of the other properties as well. Oh, not project. 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 I was like, what is project? Which is different than project. Like you project it onto a thing. Okay. How do let's look up English, yeah. English. Let's look up project because I want all of the properties. So MongoDB aggregate project. All fields. Oh, you can just specify the fields. So if you specify the exclusion of a field, all other fields are returned. Wildcards? Yeah, the thing is, like, I guess technically I could specify all of the properties with like the value true. But I just want to be like, hey, give me everything, please. Oh, what if I did... If we leave out one of the properties, all of the other properties get added. What's a property we can leave out? Description. No. I guess at this point, we just need to pick them all. Yeah. And we do need the ID because in a bit we're gonna, well, probably not today. This took way longer than, everything takes longer than I thought it would. Yeah, what if I leave out no op 0? Exclusion on field no op and inclusion projection. No, I think we just need to add all the properties. So here we go. Let's grab all the properties. I don't like this though because I've got away. And Zabath, thank you very much for the 7 months. Appreciate you. I know what we can do because we created travel-log properties as an enum automatically. We can also do travel-log request properties. Oh, it is. I didn't want to do. Oh, no. Travelog entry properties is what I want. Nice. Title, description, image, rating, latitude, longitude, visit date. Beautiful. So now, and F Fernanda, thank you for the resub. Appreciate you. We could do this. We could say spread object dot keys of travelog entry properties. Did it do the right thing? Nice. And then we reduce those to get the property. And then we want the properties. And you say properties at property is true. And we return properties. And we started off as an empty object. Property is a string, right? Properties is a record string. Boolean is not a record string Boolean. Beautiful. And just like that, we get all the data. Okay, does this give us back the right type? It doesn't. This is just like, hey, this is a this is a document array. Okay, let's talk about why I did this. What a hack! Yeah. So the reason I did this is I want a single source of truth. So in any code base you're working in, if you have the same thing listed in multiple places, it is undoubtedly, is that a word? Going to get out of sync. It's going to get out of sync. So for instance, if I were to just copy the properties and paste them in here, now the Zod validator is no longer the source of truth, right? So if I grabbed all these properties and then over here, and I'll show you basically what we've done, but we've done it dynamically based on the properties of the validator. So instead of doing this, I could have done this. Give me a second. This is basically what I wanted because I want to include all of those properties in this query. Undoubtedly. Cool. Undoubtedly. This is what I wanted. But now if I do this and we ever add a new property to our in our database or to our model, this query is now out of sync. Which is why I did this, because that takes the properties, which I basically created a string union out of, and puts them as true on here. So does this take a type argument? Yeah, but I didn't want to do that. I want it to always have the latest like that. So let's take a quick stretch. And I think somebody did ask something. I sure do love reduce. Am I actually aggregating data? Here's the thing. I think we are we're using the aggregate function so that we're making MongoDB do the toString action. So the result of this query has the data as we want it, which is this. The other way to do it would be to do it once we get the data back from the database. So it's a potentially more performant to do it in the database versus after you get the data back. Hey, Bogdanovich, welcome in. How do I feel about this though? I don't know. Honestly, we might as well just toString it in the app itself. Because now TypeScript is complaining because it's like, hey, yeah, I mean this is very hard to read. I think the other thing is I wouldn't put this in this component. I would now extract this out into like a queries file. Let's do that. What did I skip? Can you try it so I can rest in peace for that? I don't know what you mean. So, I don't know if it's possible because the way that you exclude a property is by setting it to false. So, like this. And then this breaks because there's nothing in our database that has a thing property. So if you want to tell me what you mean exactly. Oh, a project with an empty object? Well, I can't do that because I need this toString in there. Like if I do this, then is everything included? Must have at least one field. Yeah, project must have at least one field. So that's one issue. Oh, add fields. That could work, America 2050. And the query would look better. Is equivalent to project. Okay. So instead of project, we do add fields. And then we just make it this. Yeah. We still have to use aggregate though. This is no, but this is nice because then I don't have to do this weird stuff here. But just real quick, somebody asked, yeah, that's better because then we only need that. Line 24, you mean this? So a reduce needs a starting value, and basically properties is going to be an object where it has all of the properties of a travel log, and the value is true. So properties needs to start off as an empty object. That's what that is for. So when you use a reduce, you have your reducer function, but then you have the initial value, in this case, which is an empty object. But that is way better because now we don't have to have that mess of a code. Now we can just do this. And is this the case for satisfies? Can we say satisfies travel log entry array? Or should I use as? Well, this needs to be awaited. Satisfies is a code smell. I would agree with you if I even knew where to use it, but I can't. I don't even know where to use it. So, yeah, but this is saying like document array is missing these properties. Can this accept a type argument? Ooh. Ooh, it do. So here's where we go. Okay, we're on our way. But now what we need um, is over here. So travelog with I'm gonna rename this to travelog with object ID. Do I even use this anywhere? What? I do, but we're gonna change it. So what I actually want is a travelog with string ID. And I'm going to rename this to travelog with object ID because this with ID helper comes from the MongoDB library, and it adds the ID, which is an object ID. But we also want a type that has a string ID. So over here, oh yeah, I never fixed that. Let me fix that really quick. It doesn't seem to get in the way of anything, but just a second. Ooh. Um, Honestly, and I guess at this point we don't even need the travelog entry properties. We're not using that anymore. But what we do want is a travelog entry that has an ID property that is a string. So travelog entry with ID, and that's going to be a string ID, is going to be travelog entry dot extend, where ID is a string. Beautiful. Beautiful. And then we can export the type too. Honestly, I'm going to disable this linter rule for the whole file. Cool. Now, everywhere I need to use it with an ID, I'm going to import this one instead because it's a string. So here, with ID comes from there. And then over here, I need to, not that. Well, I guess I'll just open the file. But on the map, anywhere I have travelog with ID, I need to import from here. Great. There's that. Was there anywhere else I was using this? So in the back end, now this is travelog with object ID. So when the API is doing the querying, it's coming from the database. So it has an object ID on it, which makes sense here. Okay. Yeah, I know I could auto rename it. I wanted to do it manually to make sure that I caught all of the cases. It probably would have worked with the auto rename. Okay. Logs.map is not a function. Well. Oh, because I need to save that. We're awaiting it though. Oh, the await needs to go on the outside? Oh, to array returns a promise too. That's the winner. Cool. All right. I think we did it. Let's just log these again, because now they should have just string IDs, like that. Cool. This is the end result. So basically, you have a map, and you can put the places that you've traveled, and they show up on the map. You can see we need to fix the date now. So now, and we should actually be getting a good error on the map itself. Maybe we don't though, but let's see. No, right now I've just been testing. I've been clicking all over the map. But now when we render the date, it's a timestamp, so we need to do a thing with it. Yeah, so right now we're trying to say toString, toLocale date string. Now we can actually just pass in the number, which is a timestamp, and we should be good. Yeah, it's like that. So now the date shows up correctly. What I'm curious about though is, are we handling? Well, I guess we won't be able to test until we're in production, but we need to make sure that we're handling time zones correctly. But that's good. Use next image to utilize image optimization. Here's the thing. Does that work in a client component? No thanks. So it's a CDN thing. Use picture with a nested image. This is what I want. Like, hey, stop complaining because you're not going to be able to. That's the fix. The fix is to not use next image. I get it though in an app potentially where, I mean, you're already using Vercel for your deployment and everything else. It might make sense to put all of your images on the CDN. So that's fine. But this avoids using the CDN. But also, all of these URLs are not hosted locally or anything like that. All of these are remote images anyways. I guess technically then they would be proxied through the CDN. I don't know. But yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think we're in a good spot. Honestly, the only thing we got really done today was Zod validators and database timestamps. But that took us almost 3 hours. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna commit, and then I'm going to search the whole code base for to-dos and TS ignores and see if there's anything else that we can fix. And heck, hi. Thank you for the resub. I appreciate you. Update validators, serialize data. Hopefully the CDN will cache, not just proxy. Yeah, but I think it's like the first request would essentially be a proxy, and then from that it would serve, because it would need to request that remote image. But then from there, every other request would just come from the CDN cache. Yeah. Yeah, so the way that we prevent that is with an API key. So now before submitting the form, you have to put in an API key. So if you go to the deployed site, no one's hacked it yet, but basically, if you can guess what the password is, then you can add anything you want. And the code for it is pretty simple. Basically, we just have a single. We're calling it an API key, but it's kind of like a password. But if you know it, you can create stuff in the API, and we're just doing a check for it in our API handler. So, if the API key is not equal to the one in our environment variables, don't allow the create to happen. It's super simple, but in the real world, you want a full auth system. This is like a very basic app. And yeah, Sandora Mix, thank you for all your help today. I'm pretty sure you helped with quite a few things. So thank you for hanging out. Have a good one. The password is password. Okay, now let's deploy and see if we broke anything. Well, we definitely broke stuff in the deploy. I think I need to go in to my MongoDB Atlas and either update the things to have a timestamp or delete all of the data. We'll see. I guess I'll go ahead and do that. Will there be an export feature? What do you mean? Like export a list of all the places? I don't plan on adding that, but it's doable. It's definitely doable. You could potentially have an API function that queries your database and then turns it into a CSV and then sends it for download. That is definitely something you can do. All right, let me log into MongoDB. And what's up, Aboot Gaming? I think I missed you. Welcome in. Like, I mean, I guess I did miss you, but I didn't see you in the chat. We're gonna test in production here to see if the date is showing correctly. So we fixed it locally. So we had to change it from trying to string it to now we're just passing in the timestamp and it shows up correctly locally. We need to double check that the time zone stuff is working there. A CDN URL would be like with width parameter and stuff like that. Yeah. I guess that's why you're passing in the static width and height here too. I guess that's the other thing is I guess I'm not showing my screen. I want my images to be dynamically sized. So I need to know ahead of time what the width is going to be if I want to cache them. Which I guess in some apps you would do. Yeah. Stretch and make an image uploader. Yeah. Yeah. It's just more work. It's like every single thing on this app that would have taken me 20 minutes in previous technologies that I've used is taking me like 3 hours. Which makes sense because like you got to learn, there's a learning curve. I think the other aspect is like the amount of TypeScript that we're using is definitely adding on to how long it's taking to build this thing. Yeah, if you look on the playlist page on my YouTube channel, the very first playlist should be the one that has the rest of these streams. I guess we just delete everything in my database. Let me get all the images and then we'll re-add it. I didn't want to go through the work of converting a date string into a unit or into a timestamp. Oh, I need to make sure that my node env is set to production on Versal because that does the revalidate thing. I don't think it sets it by default. So I went to my Versal project. I'm adding node.env because if you remember, for our revalidate, we're expecting this to exist. All right. The deploy is complete. If you go here and you refresh the page, there should be nothing on the page because we need to add the things. So now let's add the things and make sure it works. I guess I'll keep my dev tools open in case there's any bugs in production. So let's add a travel log. We're going to add the Statue of Liberty. See if I can remember where it is. Right here? Yeah, right there. Cool. That's it. That's the description you get. We'll throw in the image URL, give it a rating. I visited this probably 2012 in the summer. Did I spell it wrong? Statue? I think I spelled it right. Statue of Liberty. Okay. Here we go. We click create. It's working. And there we go. It worked. It worked. No errors in the console. It took a second. I forgot. So we actually do have a to-do for loading spinners. Like it's not a good user experience to just see the page sit there while the stuff is happening in the background. So we definitely need to add a loading spinner. Let's add another one. We're gonna add Casa Bonita, which is a Mexican restaurant. And Monger, thank you for the donation. Appreciate that. Here we go. Casa Bonita is right around here. If you've ever watched South Park, it's the very same Casa Bonita. Taco Tuesday. Yes. Wait, isn't it? Isn't this Colfax? Yeah, that's Colfax. Wait, here it is. Casa Bonita. That's it. They really do have a fountain. And not recently, I guess like over a year ago, it got purchased by Matt and Trey, the creators of South Park. And they're remodeling it. They've hired an actual like good chef. And it's going to be reopening pretty soon. So that's cool. Great Mexican food. They have cliff divers and an arcade. Also, free sopapillas. Cool. Last time I went there was probably Halloween of 2019. It shut down early pandemic. And it was, I think the original owners like went bankrupt. But Matt and Trey swooped in to buy it. All right, click create. It's happening. We need a loading spinner, and then it's there. Here's the issue. It didn't revalidate, so that's a bug. You can see that it's not there, but the post request was successful. And even if I refresh the page, oh, it is there after a refresh. I don't like that. The free sopapillas was the best part. Yeah, you can eat as many as you want too. Why did that happen? It's technically it puts it in the database and then it waits for the revalidation and then responds. Did we get rid of the client-side navigate? I don't think we did. Well, so I set this value. So it did revalidate. The fact that we're seeing the latest data means it did revalidate. It's just like out of sync between when the form is moving from or navigating. So this router.push is happening too soon. But technically it waited for the response from the server. Yeah, press F5 to see the new places. Well, let's see if it's a real bug. We're gonna try one more time. we're gonna try to add JS Nation, which is gonna be in Amsterdam, and I'm gonna be there. So jsnation.com, get your tickets. Come meet me. Come hang out. Come learn a bunch of stuff. There were no logs in the console. We can show it. This is where we can test the date bug, though. So if we set the date as June 2023, before it was showing, so June 1st, 2023, before it was showing as May 31st, there was like a time zone issue. So see, it worked that time. Travel's expensive? Yeah, true. you could take a train, right? Trains are not that expensive. So this is the kind of bug that only happens sometimes. I'm not going to worry about it right now. But it worked. It worked. And now if you go to this URL, you should be able to see the places that I've traveled. You won't be able to add anything new unless you know the thing. But yeah, you're right. Let me look at the logs really quick, Brivlio, just to see if there's any weird stuff happening on the server side. The API key is there on the deployed site. It shouldn't be. It saves whatever you typed in last. Well, so it could be in your time zone. Yeah, same thing. Same thing. It's showing May 31st instead of June 1st. We'll have to debug that later. Do I have that in my to-do? Visit date time zone error. All right, that's it for today. I did say I was going to search for TS ignore. Let's see how many TS ignores we have in the code base. None. These are all built files. That's awesome. Do we have what to-dos do we have listed? You don't see any logs? You should. I mean, somebody could be like pounding the server with a bunch of requests. Yeah, I mean, somebody tried to create something, but it gave them a 401 error. All right, let's look at our to-dos and then we'll get out of here. So clean up Zod error messages. Yes. So on the client side, if the server responds with Zod validation errors, we're just spitting out the entire error. We need to clean that up. I don't know if we're going to be able to fix that. Adjust the center according to sidebar. That we'll do that later. And then specifically handle Zod errors. Okay. These are decent to-dos. It's not a ton, but we're definitely going to do it at another time. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of people have said that the tickets are expensive, but I mean, I'll show you like ViewConf really quick. So the tickets, let's see. It's 420 euros, but if you want to go to React Summit as well, then it's 730. I've been to ViewConf before. I paid for it myself, and I did it's $1,500. Like these. I mean, maybe it's different in Europe, but like conferences in the US are usually at least $1,000. So, but maybe I'm not used to that. Yeah. And I think that's, yeah, like exactly like CM Griffin is saying it. Typically, your employer will pay for that ticket. So which is why the cost is higher. I think especially for like view conf here. But like, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, I mean, I went to conferences 10 years ago that were this price. So I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you're not in Europe, then it gets prohibitively expensive because not only do you have travel and hotel, then you also have like the ticket price. Yeah. GMT -3, not converting to UTC. I guess we would need to convert to UTC. Well, the thing is, we don't even need to convert because everything is just a timestamp, and the timestamp has the time zone embedded. I think. Oh, but well, doesn't it? I don't know. I don't know. We'll look at spinners next time. All right. This was fun. Thank you for hanging out, everybody. We got some stuff done. I think ultimately we worked on the Zod validators and we worked on serializing and making sure that we're using the right Zod types everywhere. So we don't have a single TS ignore anywhere. All of our TypeScript is really happy, and we're doing the right thing. So that's good. That's good. All right, did I change anything else? I guess I updated the to-do. I'll work on this again next week. This is like the never-ending project that 4 years ago I built this in 4 hours. But it didn't have TypeScript. I didn't use Next.js. I just used React on the front end and an Express backend. And I would say this is a bit more of an intermediate to an advanced code base. Zero Turner, thank you for the prime. In that there's a lot more code. We're doing a lot more stuff. I mean, this is definitely a bigger example that you can use if you're building larger Next.js apps. But still, it's very what's the word? Demoralizing. It's just taking me way too long. I don't know. This is more robust. Yeah, it is more robust, but also, our last code base was pretty decent. Yeah, and I guess I've talked about this before, but at the same time, like this goes from like a beginner project. Like, I think if you have less than 6 months of experience writing JavaScript or TypeScript, React, convoluted maybe, but if you have less than 6 months experience, looking at this code base that I've written so far is going to take a really long time or it's going to take a while for you to like wrap your head around like what is even happening here. It's potentially a little bit over engineered. Yeah, I would definitely say like the fact that we're using like the context API and then we're using like reducers. We've got a reducer, and then along with that we have all kinds of like types for our reducers and our actions. Like, could you call this over-engineered? I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it's the right word, but it does evoke a similar feeling because the same thing can be written without this much code. But you then make the argument, is it as maintainable? Is it easier for a lot of people, like a team, to work on? I don't know. It does take a lot of configuration. Not too much though. I mean, we did spend maybe like 30 minutes or so getting our ESLint set up with Prettier and everything else. And we have like Tailwind configs and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe it's TypeScript. Maybe TypeScript is my issue. I don't know. Let's get out of here. You can check my schedule over here. I'll be live again tomorrow for a Q&A. This will be just me answering literally any question you have. So if you show up tomorrow during that time, I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have. So hope to see you. Sprinkle some any. Yeah, I think that's the other thing. It's like I don't have to use TypeScript correctly, and then I could move a lot faster. But what's the point of that? Also, check out my YouTube. So I have an archive channel. Some of the VODs get uploaded to the archive channel. This VOD specifically is already going to be on YouTube. So if you come back later, it's not going to be on Twitch. You'll have to go to the main channel. Follow me over on Twitter. I also have a mailing list. If you want to get go live notifications and updates, sign up for the mailing list. And we have a Discord too. So if you have questions or you just want to chat, feel free to join the Discord. That's not it. This is it. Let's go on a raid. If you are a sub, you can use this raid message. If you're not a sub, you can use this raid message. Or you could come up with your own raid message. Yeah, hope to see you tomorrow. Be well. Thanks for hanging out. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.